It is early October. The feeder in your yard is quiet. The goldfinches that crowded it all summer are gone now, replaced by the soft, irregular visits of white-throated sparrows passing through. The light is lower. The mornings smell different. If you stand still long enough, you will hear it, a thin, high-pitched note cutting through the cold air overhead. Then another. Then silence. Small birds, moving south, following something invisible. You have heard this your whole life and assumed, without thinking much about it, that birds simply know where to go. That migration is instinct. A kind of internal compass handed down generation to generation, reliable and complete. What nobody told you is that scientists have been staring at this for over a century, and they still cannot fully explain what that compass is, where it lives in the body, or how a bird that weighs less than a handful of coins uses it to navigate 6,000 miles across open ocean, alone, at night, and arrive within a few kilometers of where it was born. This is not a metaphor for something else. It is not a story about wonder in the general sense. There are papers. There are universities. There are laboratories where birds have been placed inside sealed rooms with their magnetic environment artificially shifted, and the birds reoriented accordingly, in a direction that made no sense by any map except the altered magnetic field surrounding them. There are studies where scientists exposed migrating birds to radiofrequency fields so weak that physicists initially refused to believe the birds could detect them. The birds stopped navigating correctly anyway. The experiments have been replicated. The peer-reviewed literature goes back decades. What the literature does not contain is a complete explanation. Every proposed mechanism is either confirmed in part and unresolved in the rest, or confirmed under conditions that do not fully match what happens in the wild. The answer is close enough to see the shape of it. It is not close enough to hold. If you are new here, this channel covers bird behaviors that science has confirmed and cannot fully explain. Subscribe now, because the final section of this video contains something about bird navigation that most scientists did not take seriously until it was proven, and it involves a branch of physics that has nothing to do with biology, or at least wasn't supposed to. 1. Most backyard bird watchers, if they think about navigation at all, assume it works something like a map and compass. The bird knows where it is. It knows where it needs to go. It orients south in autumn and north in spring, guided by something like a built-in sense of direction, simple, fixed, inherited. A reliable piece of biological hardware. The scientific reality is more layered than that. Researchers now recognize that migratory birds use at least 3 separate navigational systems simultaneously: the position of the sun during the day, the pattern of stars at night, and the Earth's magnetic field at all times. Each system corrects for the errors of the others. A bird navigating only by stars would drift off course over open ocean. A bird navigating only by magnetic field would be lost on a cloudy night with distorted local magnetism. What birds appear to do is cross-reference all 3 in real time, weighting each system differently depending on conditions, time of day, and their precise location along the route. What makes this genuinely strange is this: we do not know how these systems are integrated. Each one has been studied individually, in isolation, and confirmed. But the neural architecture that allows a 12-gram bird to run 3 navigation systems simultaneously, compare their outputs, and produce a single corrected heading in a fraction of a second, that architecture has not been mapped. Nobody has found the circuit. 2. Most people assume, when they imagine a migrating bird, something like a robin or a goose, a relatively large animal, well equipped for long flights, moving in flocks with others of its kind. Navigation seems less mysterious when the animal is big and social and traveling in groups. The blackpoll warbler, Setophaga striata, is none of those things. It breeds in the boreal forests of North America, sometimes as far west as Alaska. It weighs 12 grams. That is roughly the same as 12 business cards stacked together, or 2 nickels and a dime. In autumn, it migrates alone. At night. And it does not fly south along the coast the way most songbirds do. It flies east to the Atlantic seaboard, waits until conditions are right, and then turns south-southeast, directly over open ocean, and does not stop. A 2015 study published in Biology Letters, led by researcher William DeLuca at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, attached miniaturized geolocators weighing just 0.5 grams to blackpoll warblers on Vermont's Mount Mansfield and in Nova Scotia. The devices confirmed what ornithologists had suspected for 50 years but could never prove. These birds complete a non-stop transoceanic flight of between 2,270 and 2,770 kilometers, sustained for up to 73 hours without landing, eating, or drinking, before making landfall somewhere in Puerto Rico, Cuba, or the Greater Antilles. What makes this genuinely strange is this: the birds that breed in Alaska first fly east across the entire North American continent, roughly the distance from New York to Los Angeles, before reaching the Atlantic coast. They then double their body weight through intensive feeding, and only then launch themselves over open water. The total round trip, confirmed by DeLuca and colleagues in a subsequent study published in Ecology, reaches 20,000 kilometers. That is a 12-gram bird flying the equivalent of halfway around the Earth, every year, navigating alone, in darkness, over a featureless ocean, and the mechanism guiding its heading is still not fully understood. 3. The obvious first assumption, for anyone who has heard that birds use the Earth's magnetic field, is that it works the way a compass needle works. Iron in the body aligns with magnetic field lines. The bird feels a pull north or south the way a compass needle feels a pull. Simple. Mechanical. The magnetite hypothesis, named for the iron oxide mineral found in small concentrations in avian beaks and skulls, held this position in the literature for decades. Researchers tested it. They found magnetite in birds. They also found that disrupting the beaks of European robins with a local magnetic pulse, enough to scramble any magnetite-based sensor, did not consistently disrupt navigation in controlled experiments. The magnetite pathway exists. It may carry positional information of some kind. But it appears to be a secondary system, not the primary compass. The primary compass, the evidence now strongly suggests, is not mechanical at all. It is chemical. It operates in the eye. And it depends on a process that, when it was first proposed, many biologists dismissed as impossible in living tissue. What makes this genuinely strange is this: the chemical compass does not sense the polarity of the magnetic field, it cannot tell north from south the way a compass needle can. It senses the inclination of the field lines, the angle at which they meet the Earth's surface. This means a bird cannot tell, this is north, and this is south, in the way we think of those words. What it senses is, these field lines are sloping toward the equator, or, these field lines are nearly vertical here. The navigation is built not on polarity but on geometry. We have not established exactly how the brain converts that geometric signal into a usable heading. 4. Here is the scale moment. Every autumn, approximately 50 billion birds migrate across the globe. Not 50 million. 50 billion. That is roughly 6 birds for every human being alive on Earth, moving simultaneously across every continent, every ocean, every mountain range, navigating using systems that in many cases we have confirmed exist but cannot fully describe. The Arctic tern alone, in a single year, travels more than 80,000 kilometers, from breeding grounds in the Arctic to the Antarctic and back, covering in one lifetime a distance equivalent to 3 round trips to the moon. Against that scale, the blackpoll warbler is not the most extreme case. It is simply the one we happen to track closely enough to confirm. The bar-tailed godwit flies 11,000 kilometers non-stop from Alaska to New Zealand in approximately 11 days. No food. No water. No land. Lund University researchers studying red-backed shrikes with new data loggers in 2024 found the birds followed migration schedules so consistent across individuals that the research team concluded the species operates on a genetic migration program more complex and precise than previously demonstrated: pre-programmed departure times, pre-programmed routes, calibrated to the bird's breeding latitude. What makes this genuinely strange is this: the Lund University study, published in Proceedings of the Royal Society B, found minimal variation in total flight time among individual birds. Not average variation. Minimal. These birds, born in different locations, navigating independently, are arriving at their destinations on schedules so similar they suggest a biological timer more precise than researchers had thought possible. What sets that timer, and how it interacts with the magnetic compass and the star map, remains an open question. 5. This brings us to the mechanism that, when it was first proposed, many biologists refused to take seriously, and which has since been confirmed well enough that it now appears in peer-reviewed literature in Scientific American and the Proceedings of the Royal Society. Inside the retina of migratory birds, in species including European robins, garden warblers, and Eurasian reed warblers, there is a light-sensitive protein called cryptochrome. Cryptochromes are found across many species, including humans, where they help regulate circadian rhythms. In birds, something additional appears to happen. When a photon of blue light strikes a cryptochrome molecule in the bird's retina, it triggers the formation of what physicists call a radical pair, two electrons, separated between two molecules, whose quantum spin states remain linked. The Earth's magnetic field alters the behavior of these entangled electrons in a way that shifts the chemical outcome of the reaction. That shift produces a signal, likely experienced by the bird as a faint gradient or overlay across the visual field, that encodes the inclination angle of the local magnetic field. The bird may, in a very specific sense, see the Earth's magnetic field. In 2000, physicist Torsten Ritz and colleagues proposed this mechanism. In 2004, experiments confirmed that European robins lost their magnetic orientation when exposed to radiofrequency fields matching the quantum resonance predictions of the model, fields so weak that no classical mechanism could explain the disruption. The quantum model had predicted exactly those frequencies before the test. The classical models could not explain the results. 6 distinct types of cryptochrome have been identified in the eyes of migratory birds, and no competing magnetoreceptor molecule has emerged in decades of searching. What makes this genuinely strange is this: quantum entanglement, a phenomenon that Einstein called spooky action at a distance, and that remained confined to physics laboratories for most of the 20th century, may be the operating principle behind the navigation of a bird you can hold in your hand. The mechanism is confirmed well enough to appear in the primary literature. The exact neural pathway from cryptochrome signal to navigational heading has not been mapped. How the bird interprets what it sees, what that magnetic overlay actually looks like to a bird in flight over open ocean at night, remains entirely unknown. It is still October in your yard. The feeder is still quiet. The thin, high note you heard earlier this morning was almost certainly a warbler passing through, one of many moving south along a route its species has followed for thousands of years, before there were feeders, before there were yards, before there was anyone to watch. That bird was carrying in its eye a protein that responds to blue light by temporarily linking two electrons in a quantum state, producing a faint directional signal derived from the angle of the planet's magnetic field. It was holding that signal alongside a star map it calibrated at dusk, and a solar compass it updated throughout the day. It was running these systems together in a brain the size of a cherry pit and producing, from their output, a heading precise enough to carry it from your latitude to a specific stretch of Caribbean coastline, alone, at night, without stopping. None of this has changed the bird. It does not know you heard it. It does not know anyone is watching. It is following something it has no name for, guided by a mechanism that physicists and biologists are still negotiating the details of, toward a destination encoded in its genome before it was born. The yard is the same yard it was this morning. What is different is what you now know is moving through it. Have you ever noticed a bird in your yard doing something during autumn or spring migration that seemed wrong, flying at an unusual time of day, hesitating on a branch longer than made sense, or reorienting suddenly as if something shifted? I read every comment.